I recently came across a video which talked about how to get better at learning, and I found it quite interesting and helpful as well. And so today I'll go deeper into it. And so firstly, there's basically three main pillars that are fundamental to how effective you learn and how well you take in information. But I'll go into it later. But firstly, effective learning takes effort and is uncomfortable. And so a lot of people avoid this feeling and they don't get better. And it's hard because maybe they'd rather maybe scroll instead or play games. And studying is not that attractive compared to it, but yeah, it takes effort. And it's not, getting better at learning isn't really about studying quicker or easier, but it's basically about finding what's right for you and then practicing that more often. So for example, runners are used to the difficulty of running because they've done it so much. And if it was like a regular person, maybe starting to go for runs, they'd find it harder at first, and eventually after practicing it more and more, they'll be able to enjoy it as well, but also be better at it. And it's similar to studying. If you don't have a right way and you just you don't really study using a fixed way that often, then you always find it hard to get into it. However, if you find the right way to study effective for you and you always practice it, it will eventually become not only enjoyable but also really easy to get into. And it's not really possible to have the best resources for studying, and a lot of people might say they might have the best app or the best technique, but they can still be bad at studying. So you can it's not really about things like that, but it's more about the level of thinking that you put into it. And you could, even without good apps or good techniques to study, as long as you put in the effort and focus, you will still learn a lot better than someone who has good apps and techniques but doesn't focus in their study. And now I want to talk about basically what is learning. And so it's basically putting something into your brain and then remembering it and being able to retrieve it whenever you want. And so what a lot of people end up doing is they end up repeating a constant cycle of maybe flashcards or just looking at notes. And basically because so like I said, the three pillars, it's encoding, and then which goes into your memory, and then retrieving. And basically the flashcard grind, or just the constant repeating cycle, is it strengthens their retrieval because they'll be able to memorize the words. However, the encoding won't change, and that's why they keep forgetting things and they have to keep going over and over. And that's happened to me quite a lot as well. For example, when I'm learning my Japanese words, often I just keep going over the same Quizlets sets, and maybe I'll learn it after maybe it will be in my mind maybe for 3 days, 4 days. However, I have to keep repeating it and repeating it because I'm not really strengthening my encoding skills, but I'm only strengthening my retrieval. And so you have to strengthen all three of these things to eventually make your learning as productive as possible. And so I first want to talk about one of the pillars, which is the enablers. And so what these are so you should do this first, and what these are basically, firstly, your self-management skills. So things like your time management and how well you can deal with procrastination, and also about your focus and concentration. And then the other parts are your growth skills. So things like experimentation and critical reflection. And so you can compare two people who have good growth skills and someone who doesn't really have good growth skills. And the person with growth skills will study a lot quicker because they are able to spot their weaknesses and also be able to find the best technique for them. And so, for example, I've done quite a lot of experimentation with what works for me as well. So for memorizing things, I like to sometimes go with flashcards, and I also like to maybe go over notes and write down some key points, and that really helps me. However, you have to, I guess, find what really works for you, and to do that you have to have growth skills where you just experiment with different techniques and also assess what goes well for you and what doesn't. The second pillar is retrieval, and I was basically talking about this where flashcards really strengthen this, because I guess they help you go back to your memory, and yeah, it's basically just retrieving the information in your head whenever you want. So like if you have a test, that's basically where you need to use your retrieval skills to get the things out of your memory and onto the sheet of paper. And there's many ways to do this. Teaching is really good, or also quizzing with your friends. And if it's consistent and you do it regularly, then it will improve your retention and your fluency and the speed that you're able to recall things. And it also allows you to spot gaps in your knowledge, and you can go over it before a test. And so I remember when I had a history test, and just quickly, me and my friends just did a quick test to each other. And so, for example, we asked questions about it was on World War II, about Germany, and for example, my friends asked me when was the Reichstag fire, and I didn't really know, because I hadn't really went over that part yet, and so it allowed me to spot where the gaps in my memory were, and I was able to go over it and eventually strengthen that part and do better in the exam. And finally is encoding, and so this is one of the most useful skills, because it's basically just the way your brain interprets information, and the way you store it in your mind. And people who aren't very good at this are, I guess, they often forget things quickly after learning something. And I guess that's actually happened to me quite a lot before as well, where sometimes I try to learn something but I'd forget immediately after. However, if you can strengthen it by, I guess, by changing the way that you look at your work, and instead of just looking at the words and just going over it and over, you can look for like links, and you can look for things that can I guess trigger your memory to remember something. So for example, if you come across a word and you can link it to something in your experience, and that would just make it a lot easier to help you remember it. And so those are basically the three pillars that are effective for your learning. And I think for me, I think I've actually spent quite a lot of time on trying to improve my skills. And so hopefully, I think if you follow these steps, you'll be able to study efficiently too. Thank you for listening.